In 1991, the eruption of Mount Pinatubo shocked the world due to its horrific intensity as it caused the summit region of the formerly 1,750-meter-high peak on the island of Luzon to collapse into a caldera with a floor at an elevation of only 900 meters. This eruption was the largest to occur on the planet since 1912, which, in addition to creating a 40-kilometer-high eruption plume, created valley-filling pyroclastic flows which coated the landscape up to a distance of 16 kilometers from its former summit. While this catastrophic eruption is still well known, it might come as a surprise that this was not the first caldera-forming eruption to occur in historic time in the Philippines. As far to the south on the island of Mindanao, a similar lake-filled caldera can also be found. While few people are aware that this volcano exists, this near-carbon copy of Mount Pinatubo is today known as Mount Parker or Mount Malibdingoy. This volcano contains a 3-kilometer-wide and nearly 400-meter-deep caldera which formed during a highly explosive eruption on January 4, 1641. Although Mount Parker has not erupted since, it is still considered active as it presumably still contains an at-depth magma chamber which supplies heated water to hot springs which reach up to 55 degrees Celsius or 131 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you look closely around the volcano, you might even see outcrops of thick ash layers several meters thick which originated from the 1641 eruption. The Parker volcano can be found in the far southern Philippines on the island of Mindanao, where it is 30 kilometers west of General Santos City. Although the exact age of this volcano is unknown, it is quite similar in appearance to Mount Pinatubo, which also displays significant amounts of erosion around its complex. Thus, we can assume that Parker is of a similar age, perhaps slightly younger, so I suggest it began erupting around 500,000 years ago. Initial eruptive activity likely began 6 kilometers northeast of the modern Caldera Lake, where a volume of basaltic andesite magma intruded into the crust before explosively erupting onto the surface. These early eruptions were moderately explosive and, alongside generating occasional fountains of lava, began building a gray-colored stratocone with a red coloration on and near its summit created by ejected scoria. By 30,000 years ago, magma had once again become more silica-rich after prolonged leaching of silica into the magma chamber from the surrounding crustal rock, causing its composition to change from andesite to dacite. And this is when it appears the style of Mount Parker changed, going from a mildly explosive volcano with frequent eruptions to a highly explosive volcano with infrequent eruptions. In a manner of speaking, Mount Parker became like Mount Pinatubo, except its eruptions were generally 3 times less voluminous in terms of ejected tephra. The first of 4 powerful volcanic eruptions which would happen occurred 28,000 years ago, which, in my opinion, likely ejected more than a cubic kilometer of volcanic rock and devastated the landscape in a 10-kilometer radius. For the next 24,000 years, no powerful eruptions occurred and the volcano most likely lay dormant. However, I want to note that I am not confident that the current known eruptive history of this volcano is complete, as in 1992, 1993, and 2021, Mount Pinatubo produced minor explosive eruptions which were so insignificant that if people had not witnessed them, they likely would have been lost in the geologic record. The same thing is probably true with Mount Parker, which also likely had a few infrequent small explosive eruptions after or between each major eruption. The next major eruption occurred in 1920 BCE, creating a tall ash column which partially collapsed due to its own weight, creating pyroclastic flows which were recorded traveling up to a distance of at least 7 kilometers away. Another similarly sized eruption followed in 1380 BCE. The most recent eruption began during the last week of December of 1640, which initially produced numerous volcanic explosions and tall fountains of lava. This formed a plug which prevented a large amount of gas from escaping, which eventually built up in pressure and exploded in a powerful eruption. As the plume of ash shot high into the atmosphere, powerful pyroclastic flows and lahars destroyed vast stretches of landscape up to a distance of 20 kilometers away from Parker's former summit. Then, due to the large amount of erupted material, which I estimate to be around 8 cubic kilometers, the underlying magma chamber now had empty space. This caused overlying ground to collapse downwards and form its modern caldera. Thanks for watching. If you would like to request a specific topic, please leave a comment below. Additionally, I would like to thank Alan Smithy for increasing their Patreon tier on this channel's Patreon page.